Let's talk. We're Precedent Wealth Partners here. Thanks for joining us and spending a few minutes with us. We're covering kind of a blocking and tackling item here today, Harold, the difference between a 401k and an IRA. So
that's very basic, but very important.
It is important, and there's some questions that stem from it that we're kind of going to cover and go through here today that could be interesting.
Sure.
And could hopefully provide insights to you, our listeners. So let's just dive right in, if that's okay.
Good.
Probably going to pull this up here. We've got really 5 kind of questions that we're going to cover during the time here today. We'll just run through those. Number 1, what's the difference between a 401k and an IRA? Number 2, what type of contribution limits are there in a 401k versus an IRA? Number 3, what we call bucket questions. And we'll kind of get to those in a little more detail as we move on. Number 4, contribution timing questions. As you go through an individual year. And number 5, what happens to my 401k when I retire? Where will it go? So just kind of tackling those today, Harold.
Sure.
Yeah. Let's start with just number 1 there as we go in. What's the difference between a 401k and an IRA when it just at a high level?
Well, fundamentally, a 401k is an employer-sponsored plan. It's a workplace plan. So you get into that kind of account by virtue of the fact that you're working for a company that sponsors a plan and you're eligible to participate. So you can make tax-advantaged retirement accumulations in that plan. An individual retirement account, an IRA, is exactly that. It's not associated with an employer. And you can set it up on your own. And generally, people use those if they are not working for a company with a 401k. I think in most cases, it's fair to say people would probably opt first to participate in the 401k if that's available. And then the IRA for contributions would probably be their second alternative.
Yeah. Talk to us for a second about investment options between the two, because that's actually something that can differ.
Yes.
Between the two types of accounts.
Well, because the 401k is an employer-sponsored plan, it means that to some degree your menu of available investments for your account that you're contributing to is going to be controlled by whatever the employer serves up to you as a menu. In some cases, that might be an enumerated list of funds or ETFs that are diversified buckets of investments, and you can allocate among those. Some plans will have the option for you to carve off a self-directed account of some sort where you have what amounts to more like a brokerage account inside the 401k.
Generally speaking, though, in an IRA, you're going to have the whole universe of investment options.
That's the main difference.
And in a 401k, you won't have that much flexibility.
In the IRA, you're really working through the sponsor of your account, which is typically a brokerage firm, meaning it's fairly wide open how you invest it.
Yeah. Let you touch on contribution limits. Just take us through kind of where we are in the current tax year and maybe also catch-up contributions, which hopefully our listeners are familiar with, but how do those differ?
The contribution limits are higher in almost all employer-sponsored plans, including a 401k. I think this year the limit, if I recall correctly, is around $24,500 that you can put in on literally a pre-tax basis if you can afford that kind of savings out of your paycheck, and that doesn't count what the employer may add to that. As a matching contribution.
Our listeners might be looking at kind of the contribution limit summary that we have pulled up here. You also have these catch-up contributions. So inside of
if you're like me and have just passed the age of 50, you're able to put a little more in.
That's right.
Us 50-somethings.
I think you passed 50 years ago.
You always remind me.
My memory's correct.
And that's about an additional roughly $8,000, I think, this year. I may be leaving off the rounding.
No, it's an additional 8. And then actually last year, and this was an extension of the Secure Act, they added a super catch-up for folks age 60 to 63.
I would also qualify for that.
And so that increases the catch-up to $11,250.
Yes,
so,
right.
If you're looking at really maxing out and you're in those age ranges, you can get over $35,000.
Yeah. And
into a
then
401k
not
plan.
counting any employer match.
Right,
you
those
know.
are just your
The
contributions.
IRA limits, by contrast, are a lot less. They're down around $7,500. I think this year is the new number, and there is a catch up contribution for the IRA, but it's only about $1,000.
It's $1,100
$1,100
in 2026. Yeah.
So you can get up to 8,600. In an IRA.
Yeah, and
if you're over the age of 50.
The other thing to add is there are income restrictions and phase outs on the deductibility of IRA contributions. And on the Roth IRA side, if you're making too much money, you start to phase out of your ability to be able to contribute to a Roth. We're going to kind of cover those in a separate video. It's sort of a topic on its own.
If you or a member of your family is participating in a 401k, these income limits might restrict you from also contributing to an IRA on a pre-tax basis.
Yeah.
That's something a lot of people are going to run into.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of hit on that with some other planning videos in the future. Let's go to those bucket questions. We're going to kind of knock these off one by one. These are really questions that we get a lot from clients in meetings. Just kind of day to day, they want to discover what sort of flexibility they have in their 401k plans. The number one kind of question we get is, can I make, I hear about this Roth IRA, right? I can get Roth dollars into a retirement account. They're going to grow tax-free. They're going to be withdrawn tax-free forever.
You don't get any sort of pre-tax deduction as they go in.
Right.
But all of that future growth is tax-free.
Is tax-free. So a lot of clients ask, can I make Roth contributions to my employer 401k? And the answer to that is yes.
You can. It is dependent upon your employer offering the Roth option.
If they offer it, though, there's no reason.
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And because that's relatively new legislation, there are some of our listeners might go to their employer and ask about it and find, well, we don't have that in the plan yet. But I think it's fair to say most plans are moving.
They're going that
in
way.
that direction.
Yeah.
So that's probably going to be available for most people.
How about if I make Roth contributions, do I still get the employer match, or does that disqualify me?
You do. No, the employee contribution can be either a regular contribution pre-tax, it can be a Roth contribution after tax. The employer match is treated the same regardless.
Yeah, and this is an interesting one. Kind of as we go through that Roth discussion with a lot of our clients, they say, okay, well, if I'm then making those Roth contributions, do I get the match as Roth dollars? The answer to that is no.
It would be nice.
It would be nice, but
to get that tax free. But no, that's not the rule. That's traditional.
Right.
That'll be that account will be segregated, and when it comes out of the plan later, it'll be taxable.
Right.
To the.
We're gonna get to that in our next slide, because I think a lot of folks do a really good job of just kind of getting dollars into their plan and their savers, and they're doing great. Maybe they haven't looked into, or they haven't just spent the time to understand the different buckets, the tax buckets, we would call them, that are in a 401k plan. So we're going to kind of go over that in just a second. But last one, Harold, my company makes a profit sharing contribution. A lot of times that's just a non-elective contribution. Can that be made as Roth?
It cannot be. The general easy way to remember this is anything the company puts into the plan out of their pocket is going to be a regular contribution, meaning later that money and the earnings on it are going to come out and will be taxable to you at the time you withdraw.
It's like a pre-tax contribution at the time. Yeah. And then so on this next slide that we're pulling up, this is really a good little kind of bucket illustration just to sum up what we just talked about. You've got the pre-tax bucket there on the left-hand side, as Harold just eloquently described it as age 100. You've got your pre-tax contributions that go in. You've got the employer match and any profit sharing contribution they might be making. All of those things, again, Harold just described it. Those are kind of employer benefits that are going in. And then your pre-tax contributions, those are all in the pre-tax bucket. Then you've got the second bucket, Roth. That's really pretty straightforward. That would be just your Roth contributions that you elect to make. If you have any rollovers that are coming over from old employer plans, those are going to come over in the same character, and they would just land in these buckets. If you have an old employer 401k that you're then moving to your new employer 401k, it all keeps its same character.
If it had a Roth bucket, that's
just going to go into the
Roth bucket in the new plan.
Exactly. And then, again, this is a topic that we're not going to try to tackle today, but there is a third bucket. You can have an after-tax bucket with some cost basis, Harold.
You can.
And there's some additional planning videos that are somewhat more complex that we might tackle in other branching from this.
Right.
But just at least for the purposes of today, there is a third bucket that does exist.
Yeah.
So,
Correct.
anything to add to that, or is that sum it
No,
up
I
pretty
think
well?
I think that third bucket gets interesting if you happen to work for an employer where they make available a match in employer stock, or where you can allocate to purchases of employer stock. If you work for a company whose stock is publicly traded, using that after-tax account to do some of that can potentially produce some interesting distribution options, again, beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about today, but
and then
down the road.
Stemming a little, just to give another little teaser, if there can be some opportunities for high earners to do what's called a mega backdoor Roth conversion. That is, again, another video on its own. But if you're making a lot and you make too much money to contribute to a Roth IRA, maybe you're making Roth contributions in your 401k plan. If your plan allows for an in-plan conversion, you can get after-tax dollars in there and do some conversions to Roth within the plan itself. So that's, again, something to kind of leave out there as a teaser. But plenty of stuff stems from that third bucket.
Yep.
Wrapping up here, contribution timing questions, Harold. We get this a lot. Clients will be maxing out early in the year, and if they're a high earner, they might reach that 24,500 number in July or August or something like that. We get a lot of questions of, will my plan automatically shut me off? Or, clients often ask us how that works.
No, most all plans, because they're being administered by one of the major organizations that are providers, are going to have a fail-safe to catch you on that limit, and to keep you from going over that and over contributing.
Right. Perfect. We've seen a lot of companies kind of implementing that over the last several years. And then really just to wrap it up, this is something when folks are getting close to retirement, especially if they've been at a company for 20 or 30 years, it's like, I'm used to logging into the XYZ company plan or the ABC company plan, and where am I going to log into now? What am I going to do? This account's been here for 30 years. Where's it going to go? How does that work? Maybe, again, that's maybe another video or two on its own. I think
you've set up the next 5 or 6 videos or podcasts we're going to do to hit all these other questions. But yeah,
it's almost like it was intentional.
Most people, when they retire, are going to end up consolidating a lot of this money into an IRA account that they will set up at that time, or maybe they've set one up ahead of time.
Call that a rollover.
And it's a rollover, and that's a tax-free transfer of those balances into that IRA account. And you might have two. You might have a Roth IRA and a regular, if you have both kinds of buckets within the 401k. And you get all of that consolidated, and then it's fairly easy to then run it as a consolidated retirement portfolio, from that point forward.
Absolutely. And then again, kind of going back to our earlier point, once you roll over into that IRA, you open up the whole universe of investment options.
Exactly. Yeah.
Stocks, bonds, ETFs, funds, rather than kind of that limited menu that you had in the 401k plan. So we think that's advantageous.
If you want to invest your entire retirement in some sort of crazy options, you're free to do it. Not that we would recommend such a thing.
But, the point being, if you're at Chili's, you can only eat off the Chili's menu.
Right. Correct.
Correct. If you're, instead of being able to pick anything, I don't know what you would pick.
But. It's more like Uber Eats. You've got a broader
that's
selection.
Well done. That's well done. Yeah. Well, hey, thank you to our listeners for spending a few minutes with us here today. Good to go over these blocking and tackling topics that are on a lot of people's minds, just that as they approach their retirement years, and we get a lot of these questions frequently. So we thought, hey, might be nice to just do a video and cover the topic. So thank you for spending a few minutes with us here. We're Precedent Wealth Partners. Let's talk.